From the year 1868 to 1952, 122 Dominican sisters came from France to work in Trinidad. Of that number, 103 were of French nationality. The others were Polish, English, Venezuelan, German, Belgian, Portuguese, Canadian, American, Swiss, and Austrian. In total, they gave 3,200 years of service, individually spending 15, 30, 50, and even 60 years of their lives in Trinidad. The sisters performed in 3 areas or foundations. The first was in the nursing of patients sick with leprosy, now renamed Hansen's disease. Back in 1876, the second foundation began at the St. Dominic's Orphanage in Belmont. In 1890, the third foundation of the Dominican Sisters began at the Bolivar College, forerunner of today's Holy Name Convent schools, preparatory and secondary, as well as a training center for young ladies. Up to the present, the sisters have given 118 years in the field of education. Only one of the sisters who came from France is still alive today in Trinidad. She is Sister Marie-Thérèse Retou. Sister has served in various capacities. For several years after her arrival, she took care of children at the St. Dominic's Children's Home. In the 70s, she worked as a journalist for the Catholic News. She has also written a number of books and publications. Currently, she is the archivist for the Dominican Sisters and other charitable works. Sister's story can perhaps typify the stories of all the other sisters who were called to serve in Trinidad.
I was 17 years old when the Second World War broke out. And I live in the part of France that was occupied by the Germans. And for 4 years, the population lived in terror and hunger. After these 4 years of occupation, I became ill. I had some bone decalcification. So for the next 3 years, I was living in the dark. I didn't know what to do with my life. I even had lost faith in God because we suffered so much. However, God in His goodness gave me back this precious gift of faith. And I'll be eternally grateful to Him for that. So one day I was in church attending Mass, and I went to Holy Communion to receive Jesus. And when I came back, I heard an inner voice in me telling me, I want you for myself. I was startled. I didn't know what it meant. I was thinking of getting married. I said, does Jesus mean I would have to become a nun? No, I don't want to become a nun, no. But what to do? But Jesus had His plan, and He made me meet some Dominican sisters in Burgundy. And one of them in particular, she had such godly appearance that I said to myself, I wouldn't mind to be like her. So I applied for admission in her congregation, and I was accepted. So on the 2nd of February 1948, I entered the convent. During my novitiate, that is a religious formation, we were receiving letters from Trinidad. One of them was from the superior of the orphanage. We had several, the congregation has several convents in Trinidad. And this mother was saying, young sisters, offer yourself to come to Trinidad because the sisters here are aged, some of them are sick, We need new blood. Come on, offer yourself. I said to myself, well, I wouldn't mind to go and love those children. But when I look at the map and I saw where Trinidad is, I said, no, not for me, not so far. I don't want to leave my country. A tropical climate, English speaking, I said, no, no, that's not for me. So I told the Lord, please choose another sister, not me. But the Lord continued to tell me, offer yourself. Well, I surrendered. And I wrote a letter to the Procureur General offering myself to be sent to Trinidad. And you know what? She accepted me. And she sent me not to Trinidad, she sent me to England to study, to Canada to work. And I finally reached Trinidad on the 9th of February 1952. I left Canada, it was minus 20 degrees, and I reached Trinidad, it was 30 degrees or plus. I said, well, I nearly died of cold in Canada, but here I'm going to die of heat. I knew nobody in Trinidad at all. As I was so tired, the progress said, we will send her to Toko. We had a little house in Toko. She needs a rest. So they told me that to Toko with some sisters. When I saw the place, the sea, the trees, the palm trees, I said, this is really beautiful. And then there was a lady opposite our house. She was living in a very small wooden house, and she was sitting on a bench and looking at the sunset. I said, but you happy here? She said, yes. I said, but how do you make a living? Oh, she said, it's not difficult. My son is a fisherman, and he brings a fish now and then, and I have provisions in my garden. Your garden? Where is your garden? Here, she said. What? For me, I was sitting on a bush, because my father had a garden and all the vegetables were well lined up. Anyway, I was charmed by the environment and the simplicity of life. So now it's 56 years I'm living in Trinidad. I've been very happy, I'm still happy. And I thank Jesus to have brought me to this beautiful country and beloved people.
The Dominican order to which the sisters who came to Trinidad belonged was founded in the 12th century by Saint Dominic. The order is divided into 3 branches. The first is that of the friars preachers. The second is made up of the nuns, who are devoted to the contemplative life of prayer. And the third branch comprises the religious sisters, who combine a life of prayer and active works of mercy. The religious sisters are those who came to Trinidad.
We are the sisters of the third branch, and we're doing work of charity, work of mercy. That are mostly in teaching, in nursing, in social work. And this is to help people who are in need, materially and spiritually.
Saint Catherine of Siena, a Dominican sister, is the patroness of the sisters' congregation. She was born in Italy in the 14th century and lived from 1347 to 1380. Because of a schism in the Catholic Church, the Pope had relocated to Avignon in France. St. Catherine's special mission was to inspire Pope Gregory XI to return to his rightful place in Rome. And this was the foundress of the congregation, from whence the sisters came, Marie-Thérèse Josephine Grant, who lived from 1819 to 1907. She was also known as Mother Dominic of the Cross. It was the disease of leprosy which first brought the sisters to Trinidad. In 1813, a few cases had been discovered, and the disease spread. In 1845, the leprosarium was established at Cocorite, but the employees must have performed their task with little enthusiasm, resulting in the less than satisfactory care of the patients. So much so that when in 1866 the new British governor, Arthur Hamilton Gordon, visited the institution and saw the pitiful condition of the lepers, as they were then called, he had this to say: "I have always thought that to cure such ills of soul as well as body, something more is needed than paid-for devotion. To my mind it seemed that it required Christian charity, the charity which sees above all in the sick and the poor the living members of our Lord Jesus Christ."
I found it was admirable on his part to see the situation in such a manner. It is true, this is the work that the sisters are doing, and they're doing it for not making money. They are doing it for what Jesus asked: treat others as you would like them to treat you. So this is what the governor had in mind, I'm sure.
It's recorded that the governor asked the Archbishop of Port of Spain for assistance in obtaining help from religious sisters. Archbishop Louis Gonard contacted the master of the Dominican order in Rome, who knew Mother Dominic of the Cross. He put the request to her. She accepted and sent some of her daughters in the congregation. They arrived in Trinidad in March 1868 and began work at the Cocorite Leprosarium.
When the sisters arrived, there were 60 patients in what they call the Cocorite Asylum, and 7 staff members. But these poor patients were very much left to themselves. They had to dress their own wounds. So the governor wanted the sisters to reorganize the place. And one of them wrote in their diaries, they said there was dirt everywhere. So the great task was to clean and to organize. And this is what they did. Their living quarters were deplorable. They put them on the top of a so-called pharmacy, and the boards, some parts of the boards were rotten, so they had to be extremely careful wherever they walk. So it was very, very difficult at the beginning, yes.
Persons with the disease were shunned for fear of infection. Their appearance and smell alone were enough to drive away even the most kind-hearted. Yet the sisters began this most unenviable task. This required a different caliber of person, someone imbued with extraordinary courage.
It is out of love for Jesus and for his sick brothers and sisters that our sisters came to Cocorite to do this work of mercy. It was a heroic work, but they did it out of this high motivation.
1 year after their arrival, however, disaster struck. In 1869, there was a yellow fever epidemic, and 9 out of 15 sisters succumbed. Taken away in the flower of their youth, the poor sisters were not able to achieve their goal of selfless service. Their names appear at the top of this monument in La Perouse Cemetery.
Within 2 months, 9 sisters died, sometimes 2 a day. It was something very terrible. But they were, in a way, predisposed to succumb to this epidemic because they used to wear heavy clothing. They used to have probably a very poor diet, and the swampy conditions of the place, very unsanitary, also predisposed them to get the sickness and to die of it.
But the sisters persevered. More arrived from France, and how well they performed after that initial setback. In fact, so well that in September of 1911, a Dr. Ferdinand de Vertaille was moved to write this glowing testimony. "I have seen these ladies day after day, without a word of complaint, with cheerful, smiling countenances, dressing fetid ulcers, fleshy stumps, remains of what were once hands and feet. work from which even the most stout-hearted would recoil in horror. They carry out their work so quickly and unostentatiously that apart from the yearly reports of the medical superintendent, little is heard of their doings, even in the very island in which they labor. They shun all publicity, are reluctant to an extreme degree of allowing anything to be said or published in praise of their glorious, I should say, divine mission. One of the sisters who stands out for her extraordinary capability, zeal, and devotedness is Mother Thomas Negay. She was the matron at Cocorite.
She was a great woman indeed. She was highly respected and admired by the patients, the staff, everybody. She was matron for over 40 years, and she was a great organizer. You know, this sister, she spent 55 years in Trinidad, and she never went back, not even once, to her motherland.
In 1926, the leprosarium, now called a Hansenian settlement, was relocated to the island of Chacachacare. The move was precipitated by the alarming news from Norway that leprosy was a very contagious disease.
In 1915, there was an international medical conference in Norway. At the end of it, it was declared that leprosy was highly contagious. Well, it took some time for the news to reach Trinidad. But when the news reached, there was an outcry in the population, get rid of the lepers, send them down to some island. So the British authorities say, all right, we'll do something. So they gave an order of eviction to the people who were living on Chacachacare, because Chacachacare was the island that was designated. And so the people had to leave the Chacachacare within a few months. And that was in